sports talk great again with Curt Schilling and Steve Deace.
And greetings. Welcome to the Blaze YouTube podcast. No matter when, how, or where you are tuning in, I'm Steve Deace. He is Curt Schilling, World Series champion, future Hall of Famer. We do our very best to talk sports. We put 25 minutes on the clock, get to as many of the day's sports topics as we possibly can. How you doing, Curt? You ready to go?
And it goes by too fast, Steve.
It does. Well, when you're spewing this much horse pucky, time flies, brother.
That's exactly
Ain't no
right.
doubt about that. So yesterday we had a true-false episode, right? Today we're going to do a concern level episode. All right. So we're going to go through 5 current issues in sports and a concern level that you, and it could be the team, the fans, the player, etc., ought to have. It could be all those things. With one being no concern at all, what me worry, right? Like Mad Magazine. Or 5, abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Okay, Faust. All right. Are we ready to go?
We're ready.
All right, we begin now with Clayton Kershaw, the ace of the Dodgers. Word yesterday for the first time in 8 years, or 9 years, because he's been their opening day starter 8 years in a row. So for the first time in 9 years, he will not be the opening day starter. They shut him down back on February the 20th for shoulder soreness. Now, I want you to speak to this as a player and as a great pitcher. For me as a fan, if I were a Dodger fan, my concern level would be at 28. And here's why. Because this is what I've told you in the past, just as a fan, used to drive me nuts. You had an entire offseason to deal with something. We then get to spring training. And then suddenly we're like, hey, this is bad. It's not going to work. Why the hell didn't we do this in November, December, January? So then you start wondering, will I ever see this guy pitch all season long? And normally when guys get shut down or a serious surgery, it looks almost like this as a fan every time. So what's your concern level here?
Mine would be like a 38.
Oh, you're even higher than me. Okay.
Yeah. I've told you from a fantasy baseball perspective, you never ever draft a pitcher who misses time in spring training. It's just, you just don't do it.
Say that again. Repeat that.
You never ever ever draft a pitcher who misses time in spring training. Never. All right, because you start out behind the 8 ball during the season. It's just almost you play catch up all year. It's very hard.
Explain for our viewers and listeners quantify that. Why is that? What goes into your routine as a starter?
Let's take Severino, who we're going to next. All right. Let's do Severino, and I'll throw those two in together. Okay, your next one. Go ahead and do your next one, and we'll put them together.
All right, so Luis Severino, who I guess we would say he's the ace of the Yankee staff, the closest thing they have to an ace, right? All right, now he says he, quote, feels a little pain, unquote. That's what he said yesterday. Right? That's a little bit like when your sons were fighting out in the yard and one of them blackens the other's eye and bloodies his nose, and then when it hurts a little. He says he feels a little pain in his right shoulder, but an MRI revealed no structural damage, no serious damage, just inflammation. The Yankees are shutting him down, Aaron Boone says, for at least the next 2 weeks. So what's your concern level on this situation? Mine's at about a 3.5.
39.
39.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will defer to the expert.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So here let's just play this one out, okay? In the ultimate best case for the New York Yankees, what's the date today? Today's early March.
March 7th.
We're in March 7th, so we're about 3 weeks away from opening day. He's going to miss 2 weeks, right? Puts him a week before the season. After that 2 weeks, if everything's perfect, which it won't be, I promise you it won't be, but if it is, he spends probably 10 days to 2 weeks playing catch to get back on the mound. Mm-hmm. And then 10 days to 2 weeks throwing batting practice and possibly a couple games down in Florida while the team travels.
And that's if everything's kosher, right?
Perfect.
That's if no other inflammation, no symptoms, signs, fatigue, nothing. Okay.
So it's quite literally, when you see this, when you see someone shut down, I would tell you, you immediately give it 10 weeks.
Wow.
10 weeks because of all the things that have to happen before you get back to pitching. And let's remember, this is the first week at camp. So none of them have built up their arms, for the most part, to make a start. So not only do they have to come back and play catch and get on the mound and throw batting practice and throw a live game and all the things that go with that, they have to build up the stamina to pitch 6, 7, 8 innings, which is what it's a 6-week process in spring training. So when you see this happen, you again, okay, I'm not a doctor and I don't profess to be a doctor, but I have studied the human body and the shoulder as much as anybody that doesn't go to medical school alive. I know you understand inflammation is the result of an injury. Mm-hmm. Okay. Inflammation is your body rushing blood to a location to heal it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
There's damage and you ask anybody, and this is mind-boggling to me, but you ask anybody in baseball about an MRI, medical people, and they will tell you it's one of the most inexact sciences on the planet. Yes, you can see things, and there's obvious, but when it comes to the intricacies of the shoulder, and the small fine detail of the labrum and the rotator cuff, and all of the things that go with that, unless you have a gadolinium MRI, which is where they inject dye into the joint. And even then, it's a challenge. It is an inexact science, and they'll tell you literally the only way. And the next big breakthrough in sports medicine, the only way to go in is to get verification is to go in and look. Okay, so and there's actually guys that are inventing procedures now where they can actually go into a joint and look at it without doing surgery, which will be the next big breakthrough. But 10 weeks again is a minimum. Clayton Kershaw. I got to tell you, I'll be honest, I'll be very surprised if he makes a start before the All-Star break, because my fear with Clayton is his injury from the shoulder, in my opinion, stems from the hip problem he's had his whole career, which is a very, very dangerous thing for anybody, but much less a pitcher, because the instability of the hip creates instability in the kinetic chain and all the things go with that. But when he comes back and begins playing catch, his spring training clock will start. So again, in an ideal world, you're looking at a minimum of 6 weeks before when he comes back, before he even throws a pitch in the game, and that game will be a minor league rehab game. So both of these are off the charts. This is always why when I tell you about futures betting, don't ever do it in baseball unless you can get some insane odds. I get it. But the spring training changes everything. And one of our favorite people in the world who we've talked about almost daily, Dallas Keuchel, I'm telling you, this is one of the reasons why, if you're in this position, you might want to hold out.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you've got two major, the top two markets, and they both are about to maybe lose their ace starters for a good period of time. Series
favorite teams.
Yeah.
So, then you get to name your price. I mean, it's a dangerous game to play. But this is, I always, I don't smile. I don't want to say smile, but I always kind of chuckle a little bit when this happens, how people try to downplay. I watch teams downplay it and lie because they're uncertain and they have no idea what actually is happening.
So for me, this used to frustrate me so much as a kid growing up. And what was done all off season that this was never detected?
Let me tell you why this happens, because this is exactly what happened to me. Exactly. So in 2007, 2008, I was hurt. Or 2007, 2008, I went free agency during the offseason. And I re-signed with the Red Sox at half the offer I had from a couple other teams because I wanted to finish one more year there. I felt like in 2007 I didn't give them a full season, and I thought it was warranted. And so I had my pre-contract medical eval. Everything was right, fine. The MRI came back clean. I started to play catch in November, and it hurt. And I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. Shut it down for a little bit, and then it was okay. But it was it's my shoulder, right? I'm a pitcher. So after I signed my contract, I'm in panic because I know something's wrong. Well, if you think about it, if you're going to have shoulder surgery, I would tell you when you see shoulder surgery, the first thing you think of is 6 to 8 months, period. There's just no shorter timetable for a shoulder operation. Even if they go out and clean it up, you're looking at 4 to 6 months minimum. All right. You're already in this November, December. First of all, the MRI came back clean for me, and I was still hurt. And it turned out I had what was basically my bicep was rotting at the connection to the shoulder. And so I had to have it was just a controversial thing. Blah, blah, blah.
So are you saying that the rehab is so labor intensive so cost
surgery's gonna
prohibitive as a
cost-
player that you
it's
will
gonna
go to the
cost me-
lengths of
yes.
the ends of the earth to make sure rest doesn't cure it first before you go down
Yes.
that road?
Yeah, because
There's really nothing in between. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
surgery ends right. There is no middle ground here. I either rest and recovery, which 99.9% of the time never works, or I have surgery and the season's over. When you're making $25 or $30 million a year, they're all for, hey, you know what? Let's just push this and see if we can get through the season.
Right.
And it never, ever worked. I would argue, go back and look at the last time in your life you heard a pitcher go down to spring training and rest and get better. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, I know.
With rare exception.
I know. That's why these were the first two lead stories on the concern level chain. Yeah. Really quick as we close out and get to the rest of these topics. If indeed we have a worst case scenario, and these guys aren't here all-star break at a minimum, or maybe you don't see them this season.
They have surgery.
Say they have surgery. All right. Impact on the seasons of these two teams. Your view.
Huge. Well, it depends on what the alternate move is. If you fill this spot with a Keuchel who's good, the Dallas Keuchel we know, you might even have a better season from a win-loss perspective. That's an upside. There's Luis Severino. I don't think people understand how, incredibly special this guy is. He is an ace in the making. He's a young guy. Aaron, I talked to Booney about him quite a bit. He absolutely loves the kid. All of the mental makeup things you hope for in a pitcher, he has. He's a bulldog. He's an ace, blah, 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 all those things. So I looked at him as a potential dark horse in the Cy Young race, not a winner, but in the race this year. And, again, if you bring in Dallas Keuchel and he goes 18-4, then you probably didn't miss anything. But I always look at, if you added Dallas Keuchel to their staffs with these guys on them, that would be the way you'd want to do that.
Right.
So I'm very, as fans of both teams, I would be highly concerned.
I'm really not trying to pick on you. I mean, I'm really not.
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
No, stop. You are.
I'm not. I'm really not. I mean, I was for a while, but I'm not anymore. All right. I mean,
good. Now it's pity.
It just won't go away. All right. So the Steelers, according to Adam Schefter at ESPN, the Steelers are letting teams know they want to trade that picture, though. They want to trade Antonio Brown. And as they say in hockey, let's do that hockey. The Steelers are saying they want to trade Antonio Brown by close of business on Friday. For those of you like me that went to government school, that is tomorrow. And the reason why is free agency starts in the league next week. And then he's got a massive roster bonus due. I think it's the 14th or the 17th, one of those 2 days. That kind of makes you almost pot committed with what he counts against your cap at that point. So if you're a Steelers fan, given him spouting off on LeBron James' HBO show, given the truncated schedule the Steelers believe they're under to essentially dump him, how concerned are you that you're going to get a good deal for this all-pro wide receiver? What do you think?
2.5, maybe. Here's why it always kind of works out for the teams. There's 31 other people that are competing for this guy. Maybe not 31, maybe there's only 15, but there's always competition, and they're not going to help each other out. So you get to play hey, listen, they're offering me a first and a second and this player. And you can't call them and say, hey, are you offering them a first and a second? Because you know what I'm saying? So there's always a taker for a player of this caliber. That's the caveat here. You're talking about might be the best receiver in the NFL.
Going to be 31, but he did lead the league in touchdown receptions last season.
No, I get that.
Despite not playing the last game of the year because he got suspended for letting it be known that he was in a fist fight with his starting quarterback. I got
to ask you, though, how do you walk away from something like this if you're the Packers or if you're one of those teams with the Breeze and the Saints and the Falcons? And I don't know what their cap numbers are, but
he's about a 15, 20 million player next year under the cap, which limits the player. Now, I can't see
Texans have cap room.
That I don't know the answer to. I do know they just cut one of their starting corners yesterday because they're trying to create cap room to re-sign Tyrann Mathieu. So that may be an answer for you right there. Okay. I can't see Antonio Brown and Aaron Rodgers working, man. Aaron Rodgers, whatever Antonio Brown is concerned, Ben Roethlisberger doesn't take from his receivers. You can dial that, spinal tap that baby with Aaron Rodgers. All right, he just doesn't tolerate that on any level whatsoever. Even his former teammates talk about him like Greg Jennings don't like him. All right, so I'm not sure that would work.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I think the Saints, they made a deal last year where they traded this year's draft to basically get a first round. The way they've kind of let me know in the last year or two, they're kind of going all in to win one more Super Bowl with Drew Brees, but they're letting Mark Ingram go as well because they can't afford him. So I don't know if they can fit him under their cap. Yeah. There's really only a few teams here. And I think the only team that would even come close to thinking of a first-round pick is the Raiders, if only to dump the third first-round pick so they don't have 3 draft first-round picks getting into the free agent year all in 1 year, okay?
Yeah, I think it would cost I think the Raiders would be a first this year and a first next year.
I don't think there is a single team that will pay that. And I think the Raiders are the only team that will give a first-round pick.
But here's the thing. Antonio holds all the leverage. If he goes to the Raiders and says, listen, I'll restructure my deal. I'll take this contract bonus and da-da-da-da-da. I don't know if he's that smart, but if he was smart, I think that's what he would let it be known. That,
well, the Steelers have to – he's under contract with them. He's on their roster. Yep. So they have to give him permission to negotiate an extension, which what you're talking about with another team.
Which basically there's no reason I would block him negotiating with anyone. I would have his agents. I would tell his agent, listen, you can interview every team in the NFL.
I agree.
For an extension.
Because he's removed all the Steelers' leverage with his actions.
Yes.
At this point, I would just tell his agent, go out there and see what you're comfortable with, and then we'll try to negotiate to get something from that team. I agree with you.
I still think they'll get a good deal. I think they'll get a good deal.
I agree they'll get a good deal, but I think the only team that will give them a number one is the Raiders, just to dump one of those 3 first-round picks.
And a second and a top 5-round pick next year.
If they get 1 second-round pick for him from anybody other than the Raiders, run to the bank. That's what I think. Yeah. So my concern level as a Steeler fan, based on what I thought I was going to get for him about a month ago to what I'm probably going to get, would be at a 5. Because I think he has really diminished his market, and and he has done it, not your team.
Yeah.
Let's go to the hot take topic du jour this week.
All right, we may not get to the topic after this because this is going to be a discussion.
So Kyler Murray had maybe the wealthiest weigh-in. And I mean this, in the history of the NFL draft. Weighing in slightly taller than Russell Wilson, bigger hands than Russell Wilson, and about the same weight as Russell Wilson. Okay. And everybody then came in and said, well, there's no way he's not going to be a top 5 pick. And now there's Charlie Casserly, the former great GM of the Washington Redskins, who went on NFL Network after the combine and said several teams said he was one of the worst interviews they'd ever had with a quarterback. That when he went to the whiteboard, he was a total nothing burger, meaning diagramming plays, which if you understand Oklahoma's offense, it's a total check with me offense in college. And the head coach sits there and tells you based on the defensive alignment from the sidelines what the play's going to be. All right. It's not an NFL style of an offense. Okay. And so now this has prompted Todd McShay of ESPN came out today and said he talked to other NFL GMs and didn't get the same vibe. And based on his scouting report, he thought he was among the most instinctively gifted quarterbacks he's ever seen. Lincoln Riley, the Oklahoma coach, is making the rounds to defend his quarterback. And then there is Eric Burkhart, who is the agent for Kyler Murray, and also, remember, Cliff Kingsbury, the Arizona coach, who just absolutely dunks on Charlie Casserly here. And the quote at the end, you'd better cite your sources and come with a better record than 18-46 as a GM of the Texans, and whose own leadership and accountability has been questioned by his old bosses and colleagues, as well as the greatest coach on the planet. End quote. All right. Yeah. So that's not kicking the tires and lighting the fires, brother. That's burning this sucker down. All right. So concern level here, and you can take it from any level. Kyler's draft stock, if you were going to draft him.
I'm going to take my angle is going to be from the air. How concerned would I be as an Arizona Cardinals fan?
Okay, go ahead.
I would be terrified. I would, you know what's the little infinity symbol? That's my number. That they would pick him.
Now, can I ask a follow-up question since you went there?
Sure.
McShay said that when he talked to NFL teams, they thought he was going to be another, Baker Mayfield. And a guy that just dominated the room. And he said he's not that. He's a baseball player. He's used to working out individually. He's used to doing his own thing. You were a baseball player. Do you know what that even means, by the way? I don't know. Do you know what that means?
Yeah, well, yes. You have. okay, there's a couple things. You ever hear people talk about baseball IQ or football IQ? Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with street smarts or common sense, and everything to do with the sport. You just have a better mind for the sport. Things you do. I'll give you a great example. You said that they talked about him being one of the greatest instinctive quarterbacks of all time. Mm-hmm. That's someone with a high football IQ, and that doesn't translate to writing or conversation sometimes.
Okay.
It's just one of those things you see and react to on the field.
Okay.
Baseball's the same way.
So you think that's actually a fair counter to this criticism of him? You think it's actually a fair counter?
Sure, it could be. Okay. I don't know.
He just has more of a baseball player temperament, basically. Okay.
Yes. But you now have every piece of warning sign you could ever wish for as the Arizona Cardinals on why you won't take him number one. You don't take chances with your number one pick. This guy screams high risk, enormously high reward, but I spent my number. I mean, this is you fire your entire scouting department if you pick him number one.
I will tell you, David Jeremiah from NFL Network, former NFL scout for the Baltimore Ravens. I listened to his podcast yesterday, and him and Bucky Brooks, another former NFL scout, they both were on their Moving the Chains podcast, and they said that they called around to several NFL GMs that they know, and what would be the market for Josh Rosen, who was the 10th pick in the draft last year. And they said that they heard a third-round pick, that his stock is just very low with NFL GMs. So I don't disagree with – here's the thing. I don't disagree with any of your diagnosis of Kyler Murray whatsoever. But to me, if you're going to – and this is why my concern level my concern level wouldn't be nearly as high. Here's why. If you're going to make Cliff Kingsbury your coach, you have to let him then go all in with that offense. Time out. Let me I just thought about this. Yeah.
I want to tell you from experience. I don't know this kid. I've watched him speak. I've watched his body language. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I this is not some altruistic influence or inside. I played with guys like this. I know exactly what guys like this act like on and off the field. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it is not a tip of the spear, follow me into battle.
Agreed. I agree.
Guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
And I think football is absolutely quintessential to having a tip of the spear, follow me into battle, dive, take a bullet from me leadership from a quarterback.
I agree.
And he does not have that. And that's not a bad thing. But it also makes me think that baseball is ultimately where this kid should be, because doing what he wants to do in the NFL, I don't believe he's going to be successful.
Well, I don't disagree with everything you just said. You know who also doesn't have like any of that, and by the way, is in reverse. Meaning he turns people off. He doesn't rally people to him. He turns them off. He wants to spend more time pontificating on geopolitical Jamel Hill tweets than quarterbacking his team. You know who that is? The guy they drafted last year, which is why I didn't like him either, okay? I don't think Josh Rosen's a leader of men on any level, plus you have a concussion issue in history with him. So I don't disagree with what you just said. I don't. But you know, we have
so then my question to you is this, Steve. Do you compound last year's mistake by possibly making a bigger one this year?
I think you compound. There's a much higher likelihood you compounded last year's mistake by sticking with Josh Rosen is what I think. See, you went with a coach. If you're going to go with this coach and this, you didn't bring Cliff Kingsbury in because of his college success. You didn't do that.
Right.
You brought in a guy who was very highly coveted as an offensive coordinator in the NFL. Okay.
Right.
Why? Because the NFL has watched teams like the Seahawks with Russell Wilson. The Eagles last year did an RPO with Nick Foles and Carson Wentz. They've watched the Braves, the Brady's. They've watched the Patriots go to a modified air raid offense.
But I think this is why the Jets are the Jets and the Bengals are the Bengals and the Bills are the Bills and all those crappy teams.
You're exactly right. But the problem is the quarterback they have is not good.
And he's not a leader of men. Cardinals.
And that's right. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, I can live in the world as I prefer it to be, or I can accept the world for what it really is. And the reality is, if I'm going to I shouldn't have hired Cliff Kingsbury to be my coach in the first place. But I did it because I believe in this offensive system, that I want to take the next step in this evolution in the NFL and go all the way with it. Well, that's who I'm going to be then. Where do I have the highest likelihood? Essentially what you just told me. is Kyler Murray has everything that you don't like about Josh Rosen, but a skill set that Josh Rosen doesn't have. And so I'm going to ask myself, in the end, if this is my offense, who's more likely to be successful engineering it? This young man or Josh Rosen?
Would you draft Josh Rosen 6 inches shorter?
Oh, I think he's a lot better quarterback than Josh Rosen. A lot better. I do. But I agree with all of your intangibles. That's why I'm a Baker Mayfield guy.
Josh Rosen had a pretty good college career, right?
When he barely played. They won nothing the whole time he was there. He was more known for his geopolitical thoughts and having a hot tub in his dorm room than he was for what he is. I promise you, he is the profile of every guy that's ever failed and the exact kind of quarterback that you don't like. He is exactly what you don't like. You know? Yeah, right. So I agree that with this guy's got kind of a dad issue too. Kyler Murray does, and those sorts of things. But the ceiling of his athletic talent is way up here, and Josh Rosen's is way down here. Yeah. Now they both have the equal amount of baggage. But so to me, I wouldn't make either one of them my starting quarterback. But if I'm going to go with Cliff Kingsbury, I should then give him every tool he needs to be successful. So
that's why I'm asking you. You wouldn't go with either one as your starting quarterback, but you have one. You're going to bring in both of them?
No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to realize, like I dumped the coach I bought last year who was a joke. All right, I'm going to dump the quarterback and get whatever I can for him, and I can afford it because the rookie salary cap makes it more possible that I can make these kinds of moves. And if I hit with Kyler Murray, then you want to know why the Seahawks were so good for so long? Because they hit with Russell Wilson as a mid-round draft pick, and his cap number was nothing for 2 or 3 years, and they could keep Richard Sherman and all those guys. Why aren't they as good now? Well, then Russell Wilson was about to go into his free agent year, so they had to extend him and pay him like a real NFL quarterback, and now they couldn't keep a lot of those guys. Right?
Yeah, but those Seahawks teams were built around defense.
They were. I agree. Yeah. The Cardinals have had a good defense the last couple of years.
They've been good, but not. The Seahawks were Super Bowl winning defense.
Sure, but the Cardinals have played good enough defense to be a playoff team.
I think the Cardinals are close enough that picking someone other than Kyler Murray makes them a playoff potential team this year.
Maybe.
I think there's some defense. There's some edge rushers. I don't know what you think about this, but as I look through your list, this is one of the best drafts in the last in memory for pass rushers.
I would agree in terms of defensive linemen in general. It's like the '83 quarterback draft.
You know what?
I agree.
If you're not going to take Kyler Murray, take that pick. Give that pick to somebody who is going to pay you out the rear end for it. Drop down a couple spots, get 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks or whatever.
So you never asked me what I would do if I was the Cardinals GM. Here's what I would do.
All right.
What I would do is I'd drop Josh Rosen like I dropped that coach and realize I just made a mistake and own it.
So you got to get a third-round pick.
Get whatever I can to get rid of him. Okay. I would trade the number 1 overall pick for more picks, like you just said, and then I would attempt to outbid the Jacksonville Jaguars for Nick Foles. That's what I would do, and I would put a quality roster around Nick Foles and then see and go to war with that. That's what I would do.
And that's why you're the football guru and I'm not. That absolutely on the surface makes complete sense from a. I think it's the only way the Cardinals stop being the Cardinals, and that's what I want to happen.
Good to see you, man. We'll get into the college basketball scandal on the show tomorrow. All right. Take care.
Take care, bud.